Squirtle, the tiny turtle Pokemon. Growing up, I always wished that there was a water blue version to match the awesome power of Blastoise. Leaf Green was my first Pokemon game experience on my own, though I could barely read. What I do remember was the awesome power that was Blastoise would serve. I also remember going to the zoo at a young age and being astounded by the size of a Galapagos tortoise. This led me to truly enjoy Torterra in Generation 4 and left me knowing I like a few things, turtles and Pokemon. When it was time for me to come up with a username, I knew it had to be Turtlemon. I decided to do the shiny hunt in early September 2025 during the gap between my shiny Arceus hunt and the release of Pokemon Legends EA. I was inspired by shiny collectors' Growlithe Generation Quest and knew I had to take on the challenge myself. Squirtle is my all-time favorite Pokemon, and to be honest I probably would have tried to hunt for Sudowoodo, but I already have Sudowoodo on many of my shiny Sudowoodo on many of my teams. And it was also hard to find a Pokemon that could be method hunted, since I don't have the time or dedication to grind out full odds hunts for everything. Given my username and Squirtle being around since the beginning, I made my decision and set out on the hunt. I started my hunt on September 13th, 2025 using two 3DSs on a virtual console with input redirection. This quickly proved to be way too slow for me, and I decided to spam emulators in a 15x setup. I used a patch developed by Nora in the future that added a shiny indicator so I didn't have to check the stats every time to calculate out the TVs. All the time-saving measures made it so I found the shiny Squirtle that day at an astoundingly under-odds 986 Squirtle scene. I was really surprised to get it that fast, but happy I could be done with Gen 1, one of the few generations without an odds boosting method. I captured this footage using a BennVenn reprogrammable flashcard that I loaded my save file to, and for transferring, I loaded the save into PKSM on my 3DS and transferred it straight to Pokemon Ultra Sun so that I can have a Game Boy Mark and the Kanto origin. The next morning I got set up in Generation 2 with the shiny gene breeding method. I'll link the guide I used in the description, but what it comes down to is a 1 in 64 chance to get a shiny from breeding under the right circumstances. If you do it correctly, you have a 39% chance to generate an egg, I believe every 256 steps, with different training IDs and same species. I was doing this hunt in Pokemon Gold, so it takes a little bit more focus than in Crystal, where the daycare man is outside of the daycare building when you have an egg. Nevertheless, I got my hunt going with two 3DS and one Game Boy, and found the shiny Squirtle after 171 eggs on September 18th. Though almost triple over odds, I didn't have to pay back how under odds I was in Generation 1. Maybe this means Generation 3 will be under odds again. I transferred the save to my physical copy of Pokemon Gold to show off the awesome Gen 2 sparkles on original hardware. The Epilogue GB Operator has been a cool way to transfer saves from real carts from the 3DS or other. The 3DS Virtual Console saves will need to be converted to be used on original carts. For this you can use a save converter on Blue Moon Falls. Later that day I set out to hunt for shiny Squirtle in Japanese Fire Red, a game I bought on a recent trip to Japan earlier that year. Initially, I set up the hunt using two 3DSs using openAGB firmware, one DS Lite with the EzFlash Omega, and a GBA SP with the actual game. I again succumbed to the emulator setup and eventually reached a 16x setup before Squirtle showed up on September 27th after 13,802 resets. Funny enough, it actually showed up on the physical game that I was running, so I'm happy with that. It was an adamant Squirtle. I then sent Squirtle over to Pokemon Emerald to easily get through the Elite Four and earn the Champion Ribbon before migrating up the generations. The battle against my rival went swimmingly. The resets on the Japanese copies were faster than the English. I assumed the dialogue was more condensed. Later, on the 27th of September, I started Generation 4 with soft resets in Soul Silver and Masuda Method in Platinum. It was a bit hard to keep track of both of them, so I eventually switched to Masuda Method only. Because I was hunting two methods with different rates, I counted the Masuda eggs as 5 encounters and ended up very under odds at 1470 Squirtle seen. Generation 4 is a long-time favorite of mine, and the games I used were from my shiny fighting monotype playthrough on Pokemon Platinum, along with a shiny ghost monotype playthrough on Soul Silver. When doing this hunt, I would stockpile eggs and regularly check using PKSM to save time. This way I knew which egg would be shiny, and then I hatched at the lake. I chose the lake because it's easily a top 3 Pokemon track of mine. Generation 5 took some time. I was decently busy during this time, but I was happy to hatch Squirtle under odds at 992 eggs on October 12th. Similar to Platinum, for this hunt I used the Masuda method, and I would collect large batches of eggs and check them using PKSM. I used a single 3DS for this hunt. For the file, I only had one completed save that I played a while ago, where I used a Pokemon randomizer a long time ago to make the game only Generation 3 and 4 Pokemon. For a while, I didn't enjoy the Gen 5 games, so this is a way for me to experience them in a familiar way. Maybe someday I'll play through them in their original state, but I don't have much nostalgia for them like I do for Generation 3 and 4. Though the original save had only Generation 3 and 4 from Pokemon Randomizer, you can actually just swap out the ROM and still use the same save. I also use this save to transfer a Pokemon because when I use PKSM for Heart Gold and Soul Silver Pokemon, the Apricorn balls aren't preserved. I also use PKSM to modify my save to have a complete dex to get the shiny charm. Generation 6 was done in Pokemon X Friend Safari using 2 3DSs, with one of them being streamed with snickerstream. I found the shiny Wartortle after 1,414 random encounters in the Friend Safari with no phases. This was also found on October 12th, the same day that I finished the Generation 5 hunt. In the Friend Safari, you can run an exploit or cheat to have all friends in the Friend Safari since the online connections were closed. Generation 6 marks the first games where you can choose the ball for the catch, so I had to go with the dive ball. Wartortle's color surprised me with how orange the shell was and the hue of purple. I thought that the colors paired nicely with the sunset. The save file I used for this was from my very first playthrough of Pokemon X. I never had a 3DS growing up, so it's certainly novel but very easy. In that playthrough I had a few shinies like the shiny Whismur that I didn't evolve, and a shiny Clawitzer from the infamous chain fishing. In the Alola games, I used the awesome Island Scan function. It was super neat being able to scan the codes and see the Pokedex entries. Then, after collecting enough points, I went to Seaward Cave. I found the shiny Squirtle after insanely under odds 60 encounters. So far, I've been very under, slightly over, decently over, slightly under, very over, and very under odds. Who knows how the rest of the hunt will go. I decided to catch my relaxed Alolan dwelling Squirtle in the fitting Beast Ball of the Generation 7 games. For this playthrough of Ultra Sun, I used the shiny all-grass team and took good advantage of the Virtual Console and other traded Pokemon. As the final rest up for my Pokemon on their way to home, I took a moment to go over the Squirtles and the other friends I made along the way. And then I'll go through the process of transferring these up to Pokemon Home. Alright, last one. Generation 7. Oh, I guess I'll take this through the Alola Elite 4, and these are some shinies from Omega Ruby. This one was also really under odds. I think it was like just over 100 soft resets or something. This one was while I was doing Hordes. This one was also from Hordes, from my fairy type Modest Aeron. It's crazy. That one was from DexNav, and then that was soft resets. And then here is Gen 1 Squirtle. Okay, here's Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, Gen 4, 5, 6, and now 7. And then later we'll get into Generation 8. But yeah, I'll go ahead and transfer this up. See ya. Generation 8 was tackled back in Sinnoh in Pokemon Brilliant Diamond. Originally, I played through Shiny Pearl, but this playthrough was actually a living deck save file I made to get the Shiny Manaphy in Pokemon Home. Shiny Pearl holds a special spot in my heart. Even though it's not the prettiest or what I thought Gen 4 remakes would be like, I still had a lot of fun, and clearly remember the brutal Elite 4 matches. It was also the game that got me into shiny hunting, with a Pokeradar hunt for Bagon. I bought Brilliant Diamond in Korea, so it's like a souvenir to me, even though I played through it in English. I also caught shiny Arceus in this save in a previous video. I had shiny Squirtle the very next day after the Generation 7 and an amazing 75 hatches. The Squirtle I used to breed was caught in Pokemon Violet, so I could have them all in heavy balls. I think the design goes great with the Pokemon, and I love the hexagons of the animations when it's sent out. I don't have a copy of Pokemon Sword and 2 hatches in though, since the only time I played that game was on emulator. Coincidentally, I had a Blastoise on that team from the Isle of Armor. My team was a water monotype, but not shiny. Pokemon Legends ZA. Finally, the game had come out, and it was time for the hunt. Unfortunately for me, but Squirtle can only be hunted in the post-game, so I left a 6 slot of my party open. I played through most of ZA, but due to some work circumstances, I had a whole month away from the game. After getting back, I got to the grind in Lumio City. I finished the Dex, used a turbo controller to auto-battle for the shiny charm, and went to Area 20. I fiddled around with some resets, but eventually just set my game to auto bench reset. After 900 hours had passed, over the span of 2 months, and after countless shinies to include 30 shiny Squirtle, I came home one day to see the amazing shiny Alpha Squirtle waiting for me. What a thrill. I caught him in a sport ball, and I won in the last season of ranked battles and named him Bueno, after the city where I had recently been to a zoo and saw a really cool tortoise.